Welcome back to the You Never Know podcast. Our guest today, he is an award-winning stand-up comedian, writer, storyteller, and host. He has been featured on the likes of Comedy Central, Amazon Prime, Vice, and PBS. He is Gastor Almonte. How we doing?
Yo, what's going on? Danger.
Yes, sir.
What's good, homie? How you been?
Hanging in there. How you been?
I'm always good. Excited to chill with y'all over here.
Where you at right now, Gastor?
I'm based of and at Brooklyn, New York right now.
Okay, nice. How you been there all your whole life?
Yeah. I mean, I did a couple of years in Queens, but yeah, I've been New York centric the whole time.
All right, I guess I see the Brooklyn Nets hat. So
always repping, man. I ain't subtle at all.
Are you a Yankees fan or a Mets guy?
Yankees.
All right. Have to tell Webby.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You know, it's a weird time though. We got like another team in town with money. You know, that's kind of like weird.
Yeah, I know.
You know? We're gonna compete now for people. Because that's kind of the whole dynamic. Like New Yorkers are like they're like Jets, Mets, and Knicks, and like Nets fans usually, and then like usually it's Yankees, Nets, and Giants, and Giants. You know what I mean? Like they're like kind of divided. You know, like Rangers and Yankees fans tend to go together. Islander and Mets fans go together. And it's a personality type thing. I'm convinced. Like there's people that like are like rooting for the underdog. So those are like the Mets fans, the Islanders, the Jets fans. Yeah. And then like the Yankees and Giants have been like traditionally like the bullies growing up. Like they just always win, you know, and I've been that, admittedly. I'm okay with that. I own it. I'm in a different place in life. I'm a nicer person. But growing up, you know, that's how I identified. That was my squad. Yeah. So yeah, I picked up the Nets. They were like the local losers to like become a better person, you know. But they started winning too. So I don't know what to do now, you know.
For real.
Everybody loves a good underdog story.
That's it. You know, they're good for movies, but bad in real life. I don't want to actually live that. So I chose better teams.
That's sweet.
Right on, man. Well, you were talking about, you know, Brooklyn and stuff. Let's jump right into it. Born and raised in Brooklyn. What's that just kind of like growing up in New York?
Yeah, I mean, it's dope, man. It is one of one. In parts, I just came from like hanging out there where y'all at in Boise. And I like, you have to understand, like, I think most of the country is way more similar to where you guys are.
Right.
But I've been in New York so long that when I go to places like that, it doesn't feel real. You know, like the whole, like it took me 3 days to not think I was on a movie set. You know, like Boise has all the buildings that like New York has. It's just there's no people there. I don't know how things get done. Like I know you guys are there. You don't understand how weird it is to go into a Chipotle 3 different times and always be your turn. You know, I've never had that in my life. I've always dealt with lines. I'm always like 4th down. You go to a Chipotle in New York, it is like efficiency to the max. There's 14 people in that line, and when it's your turn, you better be ready. There's pressure, okay? Because there's people behind you. We ain't got time for questions. Bowl or rap, let's go. You know?
So I
showed up to the Chipotle at your town, and like it was beautiful. They were offering me options. They had 4 people waiting just for me. I felt like they worked the whole 8 hours, hoping that somebody would show up.
It's more of like a hey, how you doing? How's your day going? Not a come on, get down the line. Let's move it here.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I got full service. They explained to me about the new chicken. He apologized because they didn't have lettuce and offered me guacamole on the house. It was crazy. It was a fantasy. I don't believe it was real to this day.
I was going to ask you about that. What did you think of coming out to Boise? Was this your first time?
Yeah, it's my first time out there, man. I think it is legitimately not a real town. I don't
it's a bunch of NPCs.
Not that like what was that?
Just a bunch of NPCs out here, just like a simulation.
Seriously, B, you guys live in The Sims. It is the most beautifully like decorated city ever.
You're not going to move here, right?
I would love to, but like I don't know. Like you 3 are the first 3 people I met that didn't work at this Chipotle. Like there was no one there. It was empty, beautiful houses all over the place. I don't know how the businesses sustain themselves, but it was gorgeous. It is clearly like not a real city. Like it is. I dealt with like beautiful spring weather, mostly sunlight. It rained for like 10 minutes one of the nights. And you could somehow deal with that and also look at snow on top of the mountains on the horizon. That doesn't make sense. That shouldn't be together. You shouldn't see snow on mountains and sunlight all at once. You guys aren't in a real place. It's not real. After college, I know you guys are young. When you leave and see the rest of the world, you will see how spoiled you were there in Boise.
It's like the Twilight Zone here. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah,
sincerely.
It snowed like 2 days ago. Like I just went,
here.
Yeah, I went snowboarding in like the middle of May 2 days ago. I was surprised. I was like, I don't even know what's going on right now.
Seriously, this is how I know your lives have been good. You don't even sound impressed with that. Like, you're just like, yeah, I went snowboarding.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got the mountains right there, so that's kind of just the luxury everyone like loves about Boise, though.
Many blessings, man. Keep it going.
Yeah,
that shit is amazing.
Yeah, man. So to kind of just take it back a little bit, obviously you're a pretty successful stand-up comedian these days. How did you kind of get that start into the stand-up world, and who were some of your role models, and what was that process like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the key to being a successful comedian is to be an unsuccessful one first. So I did that a lot. I started out actually by accident. I was a sales manager at PepsiCo, and when I got promoted to that job, I wanted to get better at public speaking. And I read an article in Inc. magazine about a bunch of CEOs who took stand-up classes to get better at doing presentations. So yeah, I just took up a stand-up class at the local comedy club. And at the graduation show, I had a really good set. And a lot of the comics that were upstairs in the main room came to hang out, and they saw me perform. One of the comics at the time was working his way up. He just got booked on his first TV show, but he was a grinder, a real good comic. And he pulled me aside. He's like, yo, how long you been doing comedy for? I'm like, 7 weeks. He's like, that's crazy. So, yeah, he like kind of pushed me in his direction. And I went home and looked him up. I saw he was like a real comic. And yeah, kind of just got inspired to start doing this.
That's pretty sweet. What's the comedy class kind of like? Is it just going up on stage and trying it out, really? Or
literally that. Like it kind of forces you to do the part that nobody likes to do about from comedy, which is performing in awkward and quiet places where it's not quite as like luxurious and fancy. You got to do like a lot of open mics. So it literally forces that. Like every week you had the right material and you would meet up, and the only people there were the other 6 people. And that's not as fun and as luxurious as like a comedy show that people imagine. But those first few years when you're working and writing content, that's kind of the environment. So if you're okay with that, then you can kind of keep going forward. So after like a month after the class, I was the only person still doing it. So I knew that everyone else found it uncomfortable and only did it for the experience, which is cool. But I like the craft and I like doing the work, and here we are.
Did they teach you how to, like, when you write your material, did they teach you kind of how to like learn it and let it like make it stick in your brain so you could go up and perform it?
Nah, I would say more so the focus was on just on learning to kind of like be yourself on stage and being comfortable in that setting. There's only so much you could do in 7 weeks, right? So like it wasn't like such a structured thing. There's a lot of like comedy schools that kind of like try to do like set up punchline stuff, and in my opinion, that doesn't really have the same value. You can kind of look that stuff up. I appreciated that the guy teaching us, Jim Andrinos, was actually a pretty solid comic himself. And he said, listen, I only got 7 weeks with you. The main thing I'm gonna show you is being comfortable on stage is gonna take time, but if I could get you like 6 months in terms of the way you would normally look in these 7 weeks, which is that idea, being comfortable, being yourself on stage, I'll chalk that up as a win. And that's kind of it. Like, you spend as much time as possible focusing in on being you. Yeah, in terms of remembering the material, you just kind of learn how to do that over time in different ways. Some people do it by like making sure their jokes lead into other jokes. I try to like always tell stories so that way I can't kind of forget it. I'm going in order of what happened and I lived it,
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone else has like their own little rhythms. And also, it's not wrong forgetting jokes. I don't know if you've been to like a comedy like taping. Anytime they tape like an hour, like a real long special, and it's like a big production, like a Comedy Central, Netflix. If you're doing a long taping, they'll literally have a teleprompter facing the comic that like usually has like a list of the joke like titles.
Okay.
Like we're human, we forget,
Yeah.
So yeah, like it happens, and you'll literally see, like, if you're depending on the angle, you can actually see the joke titles and the order they're coming in.
Okay.
But yeah, there's systems to it. Like if you're doing like new jokes, you'll see comics kind of like write them out and like tape them to the floor so that like it doesn't take away from the audience. And then if you're like really like doing a new joke, I'm sure you've seen people with notepads.
Sure.
That's pretty sweet. For like when you're telling like a certain joke that you probably told at like many different comedy shows or something like that, do you kind of change it up every time, or is it always pretty crisp on like the whole storyline, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, like the highlights, the punchlines stay the same, but there's always like a little bit of like wiggle room in terms of what's happening in the room that day. Definitely with like the like story stuff. And anytime it's a longer setup, I try to play with what's happening in the room. So like the room will develop its own personality, and there might be like an inside joke that happened that day in that room. If those things happen, I'll play with those more. Whereas if it's like a real tight setup punchline joke, those are kind of almost always the same because the timing is so important on those things. Like if you see like someone like a Mark Norman, his jokes are like super precise. So like with those jokes, I try to say them almost verbatim the same everywhere because the rhythm is really important to that. Okay,
yeah. Just the rest of your like set kind of feeds off of how you like present that one thing.
Yeah, you got because like the whole set is like a work of art in itself, right? And like ideally, what you're doing as a comic is you're setting up bigger and bigger and more complicated ideas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the first like 10 minutes of like if I'm doing like an hour show, the first like 10 minutes of my like routine is me communicating to the audience, hey, I'm funny, you could trust me, I'm gonna make you laugh, right? So I'm doing a lot of like little jokes just to get you comfortable with the idea that, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing. And the audience gets comfortable, they let loose. Once they know that you've earned their like respect, then you could get into a bigger idea because it takes longer to set that up. And they'll go along for the ride with you now because they're like, oh, okay, I'm on board with this guy. He showed me he's funny. I'll take a little bit of a risk. Yeah. And that's why like the biggest jokes are usually the last joke because it takes a long time to set up a long joke. But if I try that up top, I might not trust the comic enough to go along for that ride.
Right. It's like a build up to it kind of.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, is it when you're up there performing, obviously you have a lot of like stories and like jokes kind of already written up on the teleprompter or whatnot. How much of it though is already like previously like written down and went over, what you're going to say versus like feeling the room, listening to the crowd and kind of just like improv?
Yeah, man, it just depends on the day, right? Like if I'm doing a taping, like if I'm on TV, that is almost all rehearsed, right? Because there's like a aspect of they have to approve it. They got to know what they're like, you sold that like set. And also because when you're doing a taping, you're acknowledging that while in every other scenario, the room is king. When you're doing a taping, the audience is actually the people at home. So you want to do stuff that translates to the person in their living room, not to this room per se. So like an inside joke that I might riff in here, they're not going to get that dynamic. They're not going to know what happened. So I stick to the script a lot more in the taping. Whereas like if I'm like on tour, like if I'm hanging out at a club in Boise, I care about these 200 people that came to see me today. So I'll riff a lot more. I'll purposely like hang out a ton and like get to know local things. And I might like start the show just riffing about that. Just like talking about my fish out of water experience in your town that you guys are all familiar with to kind of bring us all together first before I bring you along to my world. You know what I mean? I want to create community first. Yeah. Like you guys do the same, right? Like when we started talking, you wasn't like, yo, Gastor, what happened to your parents when they was arguing in like, 74 and they beat you and whatever. Like it'd be crazy if you started with a deep question like that, right?
Yeah.
You ask normal questions first. We get to know me. We see if we build towards something intimate or revealing later. But yeah, you can't get out of pocket first. So we start with traditional stuff. You talked about it like, we'll ask him about his name and his career up top and we'll see where it goes. Same idea.
I was watching just a couple of your YouTube clips that popped up with the like the recommended ones, and I liked your like opening line is when you say you're from Brooklyn and everyone clapped and you go, yeah, you guys shouldn't be clapping for that. that killed me every time. I'm like, that's so funny because I guess Brooklyn probably isn't like the nicest part of New York, right?
Yeah, in particular, where I'm from, like East New York has a bit of a rough edge reputation. In particular, currently, Brooklyn's gone through like a bit of a renaissance. So I would actually argue that Brooklyn now is a place that isn't that tough. And it's outside of Manhattan, it's like the most like known part of New York. But there's still pockets that like are indicative of like the Brooklyn that people still associate as like tough.
Yeah.
And I'm from that part. So I purposely say East New York, Brooklyn to differentiate it, especially since, New York and Brooklyn have kind of gotten a different rep over the last like decade.
Sure.
If you watch like Girls on like HBO, for example, that Brooklyn is a very recent Brooklyn, right? Like you don't see like Jay-Z and Biggie rapping about that part of Brooklyn, right? Like that, it didn't exist,
Yeah.
So yeah, like that. I try to differentiate it for that reason because it starts to set the reality of my world and my humor. I want them to know that this is the Brooklyn I'm talking about when I'm saying these jokes.
Right. How has growing up in that part of Brooklyn helped shape your career and your material versus like if you grew up in Boise, Idaho, right?
Yeah, I mean, it changes the experiences. I don't necessarily think that any one experience is more valuable than the other. I think the stuff that you guys are living in Boise is just as fascinating and interesting. But as you live it, it shapes your worldview. It shows you there's an opportunity to learn good core values and to be a good person, regardless of whichever one you are. So my goal is to show you that I'm a good man. I'm married. I got kids, but I learned that through this particular weird world. That's what's interesting to me. This is how I figured that out. But like, it's different than how you would have learned it. So like, I want to show the differences in terms of what Brooklyn has and what makes it unique. And I try to like bring people together by showing that we still kind of have the same goals. We want to like, be good people and move forward. So, like I'll tell these wild stories about growing up in Brooklyn, but they're still always centered around like family. You know what I mean? Like the stories that like you'll see like on YouTube from Comedy Central is usually like centered around like my dad or like my cousins or me trying to do something for my wife. But they're very much only possible in Brooklyn.
Okay, yeah.
How do you get something like that, like your story or your background? How do you get that picked up by Comedy Central or Amazon Prime? Do they come to you? Do you come to them? Is it kind of about who you know? How'd that come about?
Yeah, I mean, all of that. Yeah, it just depends on the dynamic. Some of them, like the very first time I got on a TV situation, was the first This Is Not Happening appearance. I told the story about wanting to be Batman because my cousins were scaring me a lot, right? So they would wear like this weird Joker mask and like, jump out from behind places and so like it was just like constant from like age 5 and on. So like I was doing that story on stages in New York, and the host of the show was a comic, Ari Shafir, and he literally posted on Facebook amongst his friends. He was like, "Hey, listen, I am taping season 3 of my show on Comedy Central, and I booked all of my friends. Great stories, but I'm looking for more diversity. So I'm looking for women, any BIPOC storytellers, people of color." And a lot of comics had seen me tell that story and recommended me. Admittedly, like in terms of like notoriety and experience, I was really green at the time. But I had this one story really like well structured and prepared, and people believed I could deliver it. They mentioned me, and that's how it happened. Other stuff has been like, since then I've built the rep and I've kind of gotten known. So now the other thing happens. People will reach out. Hey, we think you'll be a good fit for this. Come through. So it's a bit of everything there. It just depends on the situation.
What did you
always need advocates, you know what I mean? But also your work speaks for you too.
What did you like working like more the Comedy Central like TV side or more of the Amazon Prime like special? Or are those kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I enjoyed them both for different reasons. So when I put out my special, Immigrant Made was dope to me because it was my own vision. Like it was my full own hour. I self-funded it and got it like picked up. So that was a big part of it. It was like my own execution of a vision. I also see the flaws in it. Like, I was broke when I shot that thing. So, like, I see it now and I'm like, damn, I wish I had a better camera. Like, I know I could afford that today, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I shot that thing on, like, Sony, like, A7s.
Sure.
You know, like, now, like, those are, like, you know, far, like, surpassed by what's possible. So,
Yeah.
there's an aspect of knowing that, like, I kind of, like, grinded that out and it's opened doors for me that I'll always hold dear, and I appreciate that night. Also, like, it was in my home turf. I shot that in New York. So I did it in 2 tapings. So half of the people were people that were genuine fans. The other half was like my crew. Like, people just came out to show love. So it was a big, like, celebration of my work. So in that way, I love that night and I love that recording. By the same token, like, the Comedy Central thing, that was like my first time on TV. That, like, brought validity to me. You know, like, this is a crazy job idea. And until you get on TV, everything about it sounds stupid to your family. Like, I'm going to go to a bar, I'm going to tell jokes, I'm going to make $20, you know, and I'm going to waste like 4 hours of our night. I'm not going to see the kids tonight. None of that makes sense. Who does that?
Yeah,
right? It's insane. But getting that shot on TV made it valid to my parents, made it valid to, like, my wife's friends. It made it easier to say, oh, my husband's a comic, my dad's a comic, my son's a comic. And when they ask, like, oh, for real, like, what has he done? They can actually point to something that held weight. So yeah, like, there's an importance to that too that I'll hold dear. And just as a fan, like, I got to, like, hang out with my idols for the first time, you know, like,
that's
as a
pretty
peer.
sweet. Can you name drop any people that you hung out with?
Well, I mean, at that taping, you know, like, you had Ari, like I said, Ari hosted. I've chilled with Roy Wood Jr. a lot. Ali Sadiq was there. Joey Diaz was at my taping. Yeah, it was just a fun day in general. Like, you've seen the show, roughly 1/5 of that group each season taped on my day.
That's
so, like,
sweet.
Yeah, like, it's just a fun night. Like, you're hanging out with the all-stars essentially.
And
so
is that kind of more of do they kind of feed off each other too? I'm sure in that setting where it's like, you know, maybe they hear one of your punchlines, like, oh, like, maybe I'm going to take a little bit inspiration from his and kind of use it and implement it in my punchlines.
Well, and the day of the taping, it's more so like I would say it's a general celebration.
Okay.
Because, like, at a club, you have a lot more of that, of like, oh, this guy's working on something dope. And, like, we kind of check in to see who's doing what. And it kind of inspires you to write something new. But when we get something on television, we know the work that goes into, like, crafting a story for those moments. And the general work that we put in to become successful comics. So when you're at those places, and also even afterward when it premieres, we kind of just get together and celebrate as a community, because it's just like, it's a win for all of us, you know, like, you have comics that you came up with that are your friends. So when that thing airs, your boys are all celebrating with you at the bar. At the day of the taping, when you're in the green room and you're seeing your friend go up on stage and tell an awesome story, or in my case, I was a comic they hadn't heard of. They saw this new kid tell a story.
You're the rookie.
I got back off stage. Yeah, they were like, yo, I don't know who you are, but that was awesome. You got a great future. You know, hearing that from, like, your idols, that felt amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it's a lot more of that. It's real celebratory. There's far more community than I think people realize.
And it has to be a pretty tight-knit community. I mean, especially in today's world where, like, you know, there's the cancel culture and stuff like that, because a lot of comics, obviously, a lot of people take it over the edge, right? And they say that edgy stuff, but, you know, you guys are doing it for entertainment purposes. All right, right? And so you guys have to all support each other. There's no really rivalries in the comic community.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, for the most part, most of us kind of know what we put into the craft, and the only real, like, quote unquote rivalry would just be between jokes. Like, I love the joke this guy wrote. I want to outdo it. Yeah, you know, but, like, it never comes from a place of malice. Like, I hope you tell the best jokes ever, because if I tell a better joke, that means I became a better comic.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So, like, sure. I don't really I don't have a beef with anybody. And I think there was a time where, like, you had people that had issues with each other.
Sure.
But that's kind of gone away for a lot of reasons, right? Like, there's more avenues now. So, like, we can all win without taking somebody else's food.
Yeah.
You know, before there was only, like, 4 sitcom deals and, like, 1 late night spot on 1 late night show. Now there's, like, 5 YouTube Johnnies or whatever. You know, you got Jimmy's. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, a lot of that has changed it.
Andrew
What was that,
Schultz,
homie?
Andrew Schultz was talking about that, where it's like he was like, well, forget me getting my own Netflix special. He's like, I'll just go to YouTube and just kill it on my own. And now his own podcast is killing it. His like crowd work specials are killing it. Like, it's like, dude, like you put in he's not even doing the big name stuff, and Andrew Schultz is killing it now.
Yeah, he's eating. That boy's eating real good right now.
Yeah,
my man can have steak every day for the rest of his life. For real,
I bet he is.
Hell yeah. I actually like he's someone that I would say he's like a class or two, quote unquote, ahead of mine. Because he started comedy earlier. But like I bumped into him, and I'm sure he won't remember this because I wasn't as far along. But I bumped into him right before my album was coming out because our albums were gonna come out on the same record label.
Okay.
So I bumped into him at an elevator because we were gonna go record podcasts at the studio. And I said, hey, you don't know me? My name's Gastor. I just want you to know, I know you got the throne right now, but I'm coming for it. But I respect what you do, And
yeah.
What do you say to that?
And he laughed. He's like, that's what's up. And he asked my name, and that was it. And I'm sure he won't necessarily register that as like a diss because I know how he thinks. He thinks, yo, I want the throne and I want it from the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't I hope you fail because I don't. I want that dude to get all the W's.
Yeah.
Because then in turn, if I come for the throne, I earned it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in turn, I know I want him to shine because he reps a lot of what I rep. He's a dope New York style comic. I hope he gets all the W's.
Yeah.
But I do want the throne, just to be clear.
Right. But how long did it take from the time you were doing like the comedy or the stand-up comedy kind of courses and stuff right after you quit your one job and then, going to the Comedy Central and working for people like that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that sounded terrible. That sounded like I failed in life. I've had more than one job. I'm a successful adult, okay?
Well, right, no, I meant but like when you first started in comedy to where you are now, like working for Comedy Central and stuff like that. How long was that process?
Yeah, I mean, my first appearance on Comedy Central was about 3 years into comedy. I don't think that's norm. I don't think that was a lot of blessings and luck involved with that. To be clear, like
so you're saying that was quick.
You were on the fast
yeah,
track.
that was quick. I would
Okay.
say most comics, like I would say you are a genuinely dope comic somewhere between like year 5 and 10, depending on like a lot of factors. You can definitely be great really early on, and there's people that are. In my opinion, I had a great one set, like one story that was perfect. But as a comic, I still wasn't there yet. So I was blessed with that. I got an early appearance, but I think I developed a lot more since then, and I feel far more comfortable like in my skin. But to answer your question, like 3 years in for the first one, and now like I regularly do work with them. I'm 9 years in. I would say somewhere like around year 6 or 7 was kind of like a point where like the industry's like constantly like hitting me up for different types of work.
Right. The reason I ask is because I was curious if there was like a culture shock from kind of just working small shows. Your name's not really out there yet to, being featured on Comedy Central and stuff like that. Or was it something you kind of expected and manifested in your head?
Yeah, a mixture of that. I think in terms of manifestation, there was a little bit more of that than I think most comics because I got into comedy already married and with kids. So like I had to like approach it business wise, like differently. This wasn't like a dream that I can like approach with infinite time. I had like a window that like I told my wife, like, yo, if this ain't working, I got to go back to regular work. So when I got it, I was happy, but I was also like, cool, what next? This is the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a little bit of that, but also, it's fun. It's a dream. So like, you don't really know when those things are gonna happen. There's as much as like you could plan and all of that jazz. It just kind of lands when it lands. So yeah, I there's no firm answer to that, homie. It just kind of comes when it comes.
Right. Because when we were kind of doing like research and stuff on you before this episode, we were looking at like your YouTube clips that Comedy Central posted, and there was a couple with over 3 million views, and then one with like 500,000. Was that a big shock to you seeing your own content that you created blow up like that?
I wouldn't say shock. I would say it's more of a blessing. Like I'm appreciative of it, but I do believe I'm good. Like I'm happy. I'm glad people are seeing it. If anything, I think more people should know about me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm
definitely.
happy that people are seeing my work. I'm happy that that's the case. But I don't think that I think that that's the case because I've done work. Like I would have been shocked year one if I got that because I didn't deserve it back then. I've done real work since then to do that and to get that kind of attention from when I post something. Like the clip that got the 500,000 views. That's from this earlier, like this year, right? It's like one of the recent Comedy Central clips.
Yeah, it was like I think 3 months ago.
Yeah, so like there's jokes there that like are 3-4 years old, right? And I've on top of that been doing comedy 9 years. So I hope they freaking work. I hope
Yeah,
500,000 people want
That's
to
what
see
you've
that.
been doing for 9 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. That
You
makes
know,
sense.
like it's polished. Like I would hope it works, you know? So
Yeah.
Just took a while to get to everyone.
exactly. It
Yeah.
took the right like combination of circumstances for a network to like a network scout to reach out to me and want to put this piece in their project. So yeah, it came out. I'm glad people are seeing it and connecting with it and enjoying it. But I ain't shocked by the response because I believe in the content I'm doing. I really do believe it'll connect with people. And I hope I get more of that, being frank.
Yeah, you said that those jokes in that clip were 3 to 4 years old. How often do you update like your content or your material?
Yeah, in terms of I would say like if you come to my shows in general, you'll probably see something new every year.
Okay.
I try to write like 45 to an hour yearly of material. And in terms of stuff that gets up on the television, I rarely try to repeat stuff if it's been elsewhere. It does happen on occasion if like two different networks agree to certain at the same time. Like there's stuff from that set that was on like the Amazon thing and vice versa, but it takes a while for things to come out. But yeah, like I try to like write constantly just because that's the craft, you know?
Yeah.
If I'm not writing, I run out of material. It's no longer fun, you know, and I no longer get money, you know, because if like if you're a fan of mine and I did the hour and you see it online, you're like, oh, this guy's awesome. Then you come see me and I do the exact same hour. You won't pay to see me twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
I want you to like know that if you come to my show, at the very least, there's going to be like half hour of new content. If you came to see me specifically that I'm doing, you know?
For sure.
So yeah, I try to work with that in mind. I want the audience to know that there's something that I'm always crafting.
That's pretty cool. How long does it take you to usually write like a whole new hour? And like, what's your kind of like process going about it? Are you like feeding it off your family and stuff to see if they like it first or things like that?
Yeah, man. Overall, it takes like about like 8 to 9 months of heavy like prep work, and then another like 3 months of like really like focused prep in terms of the performance end of it. So like on any given week, I probably write like 10 minutes of quote unquote new content, and I'll spend the week here in New York doing like all these like mini 10 to 15 minute slots on different shows, workshopping it, and it kind of whittles down to a really good 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I'll slowly add to that catalog, and by the end of the year, I'll end up with like roughly an hour.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So like if I feel good about what I have, and at the end of the year, I'll kind of look at all the content together, and if it works well together, I'll start considering like recording an album. Or what usually happens is like I've put out one album and I've done like a couple of TV things. It's because like when I looked at that year's hour, I felt like it wasn't a cohesive hour, but there was a cohesive 15. So I'll offer that 15 to like a TV show.
Okay.
And then I'll keep the rest until like I have a whole new hour of content that works together for the next album.
How much of your stuff, like, when you were first starting is recorded? Can you like go back and kind of like look at any of that stuff, or was you were, doing so like low budget or low scale comedy clubs that, it's kind of just history?
Yeah. In terms of video, I don't have much. In terms of audio, I would say I have almost every set I've ever done.
Damn, that's pretty
That's
sweet.
awesome. You review that?
I make it a point, like every time I get on stage, to like hit record on my phone, because that's how I get better. I literally record the set. Then as I'm driving or like taking the train to the next show, I'm playing the previous set, and I do that the whole night. And I'm like readjusting the set, like, oh, this joke didn't work here. Let me try this line. And then by the end of the night, I've heard the jokes 4 times, performed them 4 times, and I have a really good idea of what's working and whatnot. And now I have a new agenda for the next day. Like, all right, this is what didn't work. This is what did work. Let me make these adjustments, try it again in a different way, try it in a different order. And by the end of the week, I have a pretty good idea about that 3 to 5 minutes.
Are you doing comedy 7 days a week?
Not 7, but close. I'd probably say like 5 to 6 now. Before the quarantine, it was. But during the like lockdown, I gained a lot of value in being around my wife and kids more. I like them. It turns out they're good people. So yeah, I've made it a point to stay home one day a week minimum. But yeah, before that, it was definitely like nightly. I made sure to like get up every day. But yeah, I do value staying home, and doing that once a week. But I'm also blessed, I have to say, like now, like, I have enough like credits that I can get up every night, like that's not an option necessarily for everybody the first few years. So early on, I made it a point to go out every night because I didn't necessarily have the spots. I wanted to be in the scene, being, connecting with people, seeing people that were doing inspiring work, being supportive of my friends. And, if you're not visible, you're not going to get booked. So I was literally just going out there, shaking hands, talking to people. And then there was like an era where I got booked anytime I wanted. And after years of not getting booked, I didn't say no to anything. So those were 7 days a week, insane weeks. Yeah, unless I'm getting ready for like a recording of some sort, I won't do that anymore.
What's been your favorite place you've been like booked or you've performed at?
In New York, the place that meant the most to me was the first time I did the Bell House in Union Hall. Those 2 venues are huge in Brooklyn, and the Bell House, the reason it meant a lot to me was because it was the show that I had to do before getting my first TV thing. So like they kind of saw my story there for the first time after hearing it, and I kind of got the cosign there. So even though there are bigger clubs that I perform at, that venue meant a lot to me because of what it is, and I still do a monthly show there now.
Awesome.
And
Sweet.
the Bell House is similar, like it's kind of like their bigger club. So like it meant a lot because the same guys, Ari, came back to do a second set of shows, but this time I was one of the guys, whereas the other time I was the rookie. So it was fun because I remember the previous year coming to this show and just like sitting in a corner and just watching everybody mingle. And now like this time I was one of the crew. So those venues like always hold a dear spot for me, man.
Have you done stuff out in like LA?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a comical difference between doing a show in LA versus New York? Like, do you kind of have to adjust your material?
There's a nuance almost anytime you go to a new place, right? Like there's small things that are so particular to where you live that you have to be aware you're not talking too inside baseball. So like, for example, there's only so much I could talk about trains in Boise. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get the nuance of like day-to-day MTA life in New York.
Yeah, no.
So I make it a point to like kind of be aware that if there's a reference I'm making that's ultra specific to my neighborhood, I either have to do a better job of explaining it or consider other material. Like I know when I did my first taping, there's a line that I mentioned about Snapple. And I know Snapple as a New York company. So I got hyper nervous because it didn't occur to me until the day of the taping that I was going to say this to an LA audience. And I had no idea if they drank Snapple in LA, and that sounds ridiculous, but like it never, like it's not like Pepsi or Coke. It's not a huge company. So I went to like 4 stores, and of course, like my terrible luck, none of them had Snapple. So I was like in my head now, like, oh my God, no one here is going to get this reference, and it's key to the story. But I went into a Rite Aid, and he looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, of course we have Snapple. What are you, stupid? Of course, it's a huge brand.
All they drink is Voss water out in LA.
So like stuff like that'll come up where like you have to be like aware of like the nuances. Like there's a big one that comes up is like fast food chains. Like I'll reference like White Castle. That's a very
Hardee's.
Northeast thing, right? Exactly. Like Arby's versus what is it? There's Checkers and Checkers has like a similar brand, like another company they're like
Steak and
partners
Shake?
with. Is it that?
It might be Steak and Shake.
Yeah, there's like a company that like they sell the exact same menu, but in another state they go by another name.
Yeah.
But yeah, stuff like that'll come up. Like I can't make like In-N-Out jokes everywhere. They won't get the menu. You know what I mean? Whataburger. Those are very regional things. So stuff like that comes up. But outside of that, like if you're doing human experience jokes, people relate. Like people get you, you know? So references I try to be aware of, but jokes are jokes. People laugh, you know?
Speaking of In-N-Out, just off topic question real quick. Are you a In-N-Out or Shake Shack guy or Whataburger, I guess?
Of those three, I would go with Whataburger,
Really?
then Shake Shack, and I think In-N-Out is terrible.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't like In-N-Out.
I think it's
I think it's very well made bland food. Like it looks neat, but I have never liked the burger from there once. I'm sorry.
You said out of those three, is there one that I left out? Is there a? Do you have
My preference would be Smash Burger followed by Five Guys.
Okay.
yeah. I can get on that
Not a
train.
bad choice, yeah.
Yeah, those are my one too. And I'm sure that's controversial. I don't care. Send all the emails you want, okay? I'll fight y'all.
Well, everybody who goes to Boise State is mostly from California, and In-N-Out's like their pride and
Oh my
joy.
God, they love
so
it.
if you bring up like, oh, it's terrible, like I don't like going to In-N-Out when I'm in California, you get shit on by those guys. It's like you're saying their state sucks, and like they take it personal out here. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It is. It's a big thing.
Yeah, it's huge.
I'm from the Bay, but I don't really hop on that train. Don't want to stand out too much in Idaho, you know. There's already a prejudice against all the Californians out here.
You try Raising Cane's?
I have not. How is that?
It's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better than Chick-fil-A.
Easy.
Okay.
Easy
See,
money.
I'm not a big Chick-fil-A guy either. I don't like
Okay.
I feel like of the chicken sandwiches, that's also the worst of them. I think Popeyes bodies them dudes.
Yeah. KFC
you know, like-
bodied Chick-fil-A in my opinion. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't even think they're in the running.
Okay.
You know? But you have my commitment. I will be back in Boise probably within the next 6 months. There's whatever show, whatever stage I'm on, I will make it a point to mention that In-N-Out is trash.
Yes, please
know?
do.
There's probably
Just
be
for
a
you,
lot of
just for you,
Californians
Ross.
at that show. Thank you.
Let us know where you're in town. We'll come to that show for sure.
Yeah.
Amen. We'll do it up.
We got you.
But kind of just going back, so have you been on the road a lot during your career, and if so, what's it kind of like being on tour, being away from the family? What's it like traveling all the time?
Yeah, I started to do a lot more road work right before like the lockdown. So it was exciting because it was my first time really like out touring. Prior to that, I would do like one-offs, go like for a weekend or so, but I right before the quarantine, I did about a 3-month run through New England all the way down through the East Coast, and it was exciting because it felt good to know that people had heard of me, people were coming out to see me specifically, and kind of learning some of the stuff that I just talked about with you guys, that my jokes work outside of New York. Like I knew innately that people would laugh, but you know, you have to really experience that. Like, oh, these people that aren't like one of us are going to connect to us.
That would be
you know,
huge.
it was a room, you know, so it meant a lot to me that kind of just people kind of get funny and people are bond with your stories. Everybody got family and everyone kind of gets that. Those are universal things. So yeah, it meant a lot. Admittedly, like it becomes a challenge. You know, like I'm married, I got 2 kids. I love spending time with them, but this is how I eat. This is how they eat. So, you know, like it's an opportunity that I didn't have before and I couldn't say no to because of the money. So it's something that was difficult, in particular towards the end. You know, like I want to be involved with stuff. I missed parent teacher meetings, you know, stuff like that. It's different. Ironically, I probably missed the more challenging part of it because I went in with like kids and like after the lockdown, my daughter is 13 and my son is 12. So like now if I leave, they don't care. They're like, yeah, sure. You know, we can handle this. So now like if I'll tour, like their only questions is like where, because they'll want to know if they should come, you know?
Yeah.
So like next time I'm going to LA, I've been not so subtly told that all 4 people are coming. You know, so
just confirming their flight ticket.
Exactly. They're like, yeah, we'll be there too. I'd love to see that area. So Stuff like that. They weren't on board with Boise until I sent pictures. Then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, when you going to Boise again?"
That's
I'm like,
how it goes.
That's how it is.
It saw those mountaintop pictures and it changed everything.
Yeah,
so
for real.
But yeah, like that's really the challenge, is kind of like balancing it. I love what I do for a living, but outside of being a TV writer, in every other way, if you're a successful comic, it's not conducive to family life and a lot, So until you're ultra successful, then you can kind of dictate things again. But if you're like a grinding comic, and you're out and you need to do road work, that doesn't really fit in with regular life. So that would be a challenge normally going forward. But thankfully, my kids are a bit older. And also, I could probably bring my wife along for more stuff now. Whereas before, those first few years, the gig pays well if I go alone. I can't spend the ticket and hotel money to bring 3 more people with me every time and make it profitable. So as that changes, I think it'll be more fun for the fam and the kids. But it is one of the challenges for sure.
Yeah. Is there one specific show you did, or even just a venue while you're on the road outside of New York, that stood out, that still stands out to you, rather because the crowd was super hot, or maybe it was a flop when you thought, when it's your usual material? Is there one show you did in particular that always stands out to you?
There's a venue that I always enjoy, Bucks County Playhouse, because it's not a stand-up venue. It is, I think that's Pennsylvania, New Jersey border. Okay. But it is famous because in the late 1800s and early 1900s, the best actors would go there and kind of workshop plays before they ever became Broadway plays.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So you go there and it's this small local community playhouse. It seats 200 people, but the wall is the Hall of Fame of actors, So you kind of get that whole there's legends in the room feeling when you're performing there. Mm-hmm. And usually when you get that, it's a much bigger, Madison Square Garden space. Something about having that in an intimate setting just felt cool. So yeah, being able to tell jokes in a place with history like that, it felt awesome.
That's pretty cool. Sweet. Especially because you're carving your name in the history too, by performing there.
Yeah, man, it felt different, and I didn't know a lot about the play nostalgia. So there's little things that I learned about playhouses that day, that whole they leave the lamp posts on after everyone leaves. I got to see that, So it was pretty cool.
Have you done any late night at all? Or is that
no? That is a missing. Well, technically, yes. I had the worst set of my life on a late night show, but the late night show no longer exists. The one that I did a set on Vice TV. Okay. That went horrendous in my opinion for me. So if you go watch it, it's on YouTube to this day. Okay. You will see me having a weird discussion with this guy in the audience, and I'm trying to develop crowd work with the guy. Doesn't go well. And then I do 3 minutes of jokes. Now, in the audience and day of, I promise you, people laughed. I had a great set. But it took 2 to 3 minutes to get there because I had to do this crowd work. Reason I had to do the crowd work is because this was a live news show that they covered half serious topics, half comedy. Okay. So right before me, they were talking about African child abductions, and then they were like, all right, kick it to Gastor for comedy. And I'm like, whoa, I got a pivot here. Yeah. So the emotional tone in the room was crazy. I had to get them into a jovial mood, and I only have 5 minutes to do that. So when you see the set on YouTube now, it looks like, oh, Gastor's doing horrible. I'm not. You don't know what the hell I was starting from.
Right. You don't know what set me up for this disaster here.
Yeah, it was madness. So the show got canceled, obviously. It was a horrible idea, as in general. Those are things that should not go together. But it was an attempt at doing humor in a really odd setting, and that I'm used to in life. I've done jokes in weird places, but normally they're not documented for 70,000 people to see on YouTube. But it's there.
Hey, that's what those classes were that you're talking about. They wanted to put you in the awkward and the terrible situations. Kind of circles back around.
I mean, next time I follow a child abduction story, I will be ready.
Yeah,
sure.
You got the material now.
Yeah. Have you ever gone like completely off script and just went complete, like off the dome when something like that happens? Because I know for me, like probably my most favorite like stand-up clip I've ever seen is when Bill Burr was in Philadelphia. And they were doing the 24-hour like straight comedy, and they were just booing everything he was saying and stuff. So he's like, "All right, fuck you guys. I got like 30 minutes left. I'm just gonna shit on your city for the next 30 minutes." And by the end, they were like cheering him and stuff. I just remember him saying, "Your guys' idol's Rocky, who's not even fucking real." Like just shit like that. Have you ever kind of gone off script like that?
Hey, man, I would say that happens every day, honestly, like to some capacity. When you're like doing comedy in New York, there is an element of playfulness that I'm constantly doing because it's a fun way to kind of find material and to create intimacy in the room. I would say every single set I do has like 10 to 15%, pardon me, of stuff that I didn't plan for, like only can happen in this space once. And I've definitely done sets where like the whole set was just that because it felt right in the moment. Admittedly, that's rarely on TV because those are really prepped moments. Whereas like the Bill Burr thing, that wasn't meant to be taped. That's why it's hard to find video of it, right? You hear like terrible audio from someone's like phone or something. Like seeing like a real clear video of that moment, it's difficult because it wasn't meant to be taped. It was a show, so. But in turn, that's when you feel the most freedom to do like wild things like that. So yeah, it's a blast, man. You have really, really cool moments. Like New York, during the last 2 years, as you know, we had to do nothing but outdoor shows. So I have a set that I did in New York that was in front of 300 people, but in a park. So mid set, somebody walked their dog through the set and we got into a big argument about like the dog's ability to pee on time and in space. And it was very like heady initially because it was like, technically he's in the right, he's in the park, but it's also there's 300 people here. You could have walked anywhere else in the 1 mile radius of this park, and it was really cool because New Yorkers in general, I think people in general are pro dogs, right? Most people love pets,
sure.
So I turned 200 people into like adamant dog haters in 10 minutes, that took work, but I'm proud of that moment, So there's one like weird Chihuahua somewhere in Brooklyn that thinks everybody hates him, and for valid reason. I own that.
Boo it as it walks by. That's funny. The dog owner just stayed and let you just kind of shit on him as they're like chilling there.
She fought back initially, but when 200 people start getting on board with the guy yelling at the dog, eventually you leave.
Yeah.
But that was my whole set. She walked by 1 minute into the start of my joint, and the dog caught 15 minutes of heat.
That's funny.
What's the largest crowd you ever performed in front of?
What would that be? I would say Kent, Washington. I did a show out there, but that was D.L. Hughley was headlining, so that would be that show had about 8,000 people.
Oh,
dang, that's a lot of freaking.
Yeah, there's a stadium out there that it's like I think it's a minor league hockey stadium. So it was in whatever stadium is in Kent, Washington. I forget where it is, what the name of it is, but it just outside of Seattle. It's like their second biggest city, I think. We performed in that stadium. It was a crazy lineup. D.L. Hughley was there, Gary Owen, Little Duval.
Didn't he do Wild and Out?
Yeah, exactly. Like, being frank, I've been on TV several times. I was by far the least famous person on this lineup. Like, I had no business competing with these people. But I did a set there that was about like 15, 20 minutes. Really fun show. It was a big festival, big fundraiser. Very, very different feeling. Like, you perform in front of that many people. There's no silence ever.
Yeah,
there's always noise. There's your jokes hitting waves. It's really trippy. Like, you'll hear the front of the room laugh, and then you're starting the next joke, but the back of the stadium is laughing at the first.
It's like a
thing
shockwave. Yeah,
it's really different. It was a fun learning experience. But yeah, it was dope.
Is it harder to perform in front of like 100 to 200 people or like that 8,000 crowd?
I mean, for me personally, the 8,000 just because of the experience. Being frank, I don't do that often. And also, in my opinion, it's not the environment comedy was meant for. I think comedy was meant to be do in front of 50 to 400 people in basements. Like, I think that's the ideal. There should be low roofs because the roof holds the laugh in, it holds sound in. You guys know that's why you put up, you know, like the sound diffusers behind you in the walls, right?
Yep.
Like, there's a reason that like comedy, you see it in like these basements. More walls, ricochets, the laughs get louder. Stadiums are terrible for that. The laughs go away. They're literally the opposite of what I want. I want everyone uncomfortably close. I want the lights dark, and I want as many walls as possible.
Right.
So
Plus,
the more you feel like we're trapped, the more likely the joke is going to go well.
Right. But plus, I imagine it must be easier to connect with like the 200 people versus like a stadium too, right?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, man. It's important for people to feel like they're there having a moment with you. And by the same token, you want to like stadiums are never good with lighting. And there's when you're in a stadium, as much as you dim the lights, you can still see the people next to you. And comedy is vulnerable. Nobody wants to admit that they laughed at something first. Like, for example, have you seen like a weird comedy? Like I don't know if Napoleon Dynamite might be too old for you guys, but there's like,
seen it, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So if you watch Napoleon Dynamite, it feels very different watching it with 10 of your friends when you're a little buzzed versus watching it by yourself with one other person in a movie theater that you don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're weird. Like, I don't want to laugh if that guy didn't laugh. He doesn't know me.
Yeah.
But like 10 of your boys, all of you are comfortable with each other. You can laugh. There's no judgment.
Yeah.
So like something about like being well lit in a place where you can see each other, people are less prone to laugh because when you laugh, you give away something about yourself. You're letting people know what you connect with. And if they didn't connect, they can judge you. That's why comedy clubs are like dark, because you can laugh freely without being judged. It's also why you won't laugh at a dirty joke at work. You know, like there's jokes that hit
Feel that weird pressure.
Yeah. And it's also why like way more professors and teachers think they're funny than they really are. Because like terrible jokes will work in a classroom because that's the only joke that'll work there.
Right.
You know, no one will laugh at the other stuff because it won't ever be said.
I didn't think about all that. That's all very true. Yeah. I went to a comedy show like 2 weeks ago, and I definitely felt that pressure of just like standing or sitting shoulder to shoulder in like a huge amphitheater. And it was like, I can tell, like if it was like low lighting and just lower roofs, it would have been like way funnier. It felt like way more comfortable too.
Yeah, it's all psychological. It's trippy.
Yeah.
I'm blown away by it. And whenever you see like I love seeing parents hanging out with their siblings. Like watch your parents tell jokes to like your aunt and uncle when they know you're not there.
Oh yeah,
very different.
It's weird.
They're very different because they know you're not watching. So like the judgment is gone of I can't say this in front of my kid because I have a other job, another task to do that, you know, might present itself. So like the audience is constantly thinking of I can't laugh and other people see me laugh at that because I might need to be serious in front of that person later, or I might need to be this or that. There's other calculations they're doing. If you turn off the lights, they don't got to worry about that. They can just laugh freely.
Yeah. That's a good point.
It's pretty neat. So like
my kids think I'm serious as hell. They don't know what the hell I do for. They just think this dad's a serious dude that like runs the house. Yeah. Bills get paid. I don't know why, but you know.
He's head honcho, and that's all we know.
Yeah, they are blown away that I'm a comedian. It makes no sense to them whatsoever. They're like, that dude? Nah, man.
Yeah, I don't think my parents are funny at all, so I can see where they're coming from, but I obviously think you're very funny, so.
I promise you your parents are awesome. I promise. Talk to them dudes when you're not, like, find a friend of your dad's or your mom's. I promise you the stories they'll tell you are very different.
Or just get some drinks in them.
Yeah, exactly.
But kind of shifting gears a little bit here, you've also been in a couple movies, right? When I was searching your name, you were on IMDb for like a couple movies, or is that just...
Yeah, it's been like independent stuff. It's been like I did like some like award-winning like short, but nothing major yet. I've gone through that process, which has been fun though.
Yeah.
Are you looking to do more of like voice acting work or more like live, acting?
Honestly, it's anything that kind of comes up so much as it fits my like long-term vision of being me. So like I have no plans of ever being like Denzel. I don't got range. I don't want to have range. I admit, like if you hire me, it's because you want a guy that sounds like he drives a cab in Brooklyn. Like that's my range. That's what I do. You know, so I want to play very niche roles for a reason because you know I think it's fun. I want to do something different, but in terms of on-screen stuff, I think it's a beautiful art form. But I respect that it's different than mine. You know, I with rare exception, I think most people try to do too many things. I think you should find the thing that you want to do and be as close to godly as you can be in that thing. Sure. I think mine is on stage making people laugh. I'll definitely do a cartoon, you know, but I'm if we're doing Lion King, I'm more likely to be like a Timon or a Pumbaa than I am to be Simba. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be my story. So yeah.
Doing something different, are you gonna get or have you got into the whole like YouTube or the TikTok or the social media, like posting the short clips of your work?
Yeah, I've started to first when my podcast, I've been really good about doing that
Shout
on YouTube.
Out.
I posted a weekly The War Report, hosted with the homie Chalet with Sharp. So that comes out every week. Thankfully, I've been good with that. And my son actually made me commit starting June. I have to post weekly on YouTube. He wants me to start a vlog. I'm starting a vlog. You're going to get the whole experience. I got like 4 GoPro cameras next to me. So I'm going to literally start documenting way too much of my life.
Heck yeah.
You're going to get that weekly. And I'm supposed to do, he said, 2 TikToks a day.
A day?
So all of that starts June 1st.
Man, he's coaching you.
Hell yeah, he's awesome. He's invaluable. He's going to keep eating well in my life.
Heck yeah. If you need some of these clips for your YouTube content, let us know. I'll send you some over.
I appreciate you, homie. Definitely.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you already started? Are you like banking up or are you starting like June 1st? All right, we're getting to work. June
1st is when I have to be launching. So I've been doing this the whole time. Like literally like
Start.
This is to show y'all. This is my desk. So this is what I got to take with me every day when I leave the house. So he said I got to document all the stuff. And then like I'm learning all of this. I sound way older than I am. But he watches YouTube daily. And he's been telling me that like I'm supposed to document the day and then do like direct to camera stuff, explaining what's happening, but fun.
Yeah, I think getting into that stuff like pre-show. I don't think a lot of comics document that stuff, and that could definitely be an avenue where you already have a name in the comedy world. Oh well, Gastor's now documenting his pre-show routine, how he writes his material, stuff like that, and that could take off in today's world for sure.
That's the plan. So you're gonna see on YouTube, you're literally gonna see like me hanging out at the comics table before and after shows. I'm hoping to post up at least once a week. I kind of have to apparently starting June 1st. But yeah, I'm also and the TikTok stuff is gonna be a lot of like mini stories. I've got about 20 recorded so far. But yeah, I'm gonna literally post 2 a day starting June 1st, hella high water. So let's see. It should be fun.
We'll get ready to consume them.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Before we kind of wrap up here, I just had a couple like rapid fire questions. First one is, have you ever had is there a crazy fan encounter that you have?
All the time. Worst fan encounter was I brought my wife to a show. Somebody in the audience found out that she was my wife. We had an intermission and they asked her where she was sitting. She said, I'm not sure. And they offered her a seat on their lap.
Oh,
very weird older lady.
Nothing crazy nothing crazy like Chappelle though, right?
Old dude.
No. It wasn't sexual. She literally got nervous and did not know that would sound weird as hell to offer another grown person a lap seat. So yeah, okay. She was like a 70-year-old woman, like telling my wife that, hey, we can share. And my wife was like, no, that is odd, and I will crush you. So yeah, let's leave that alone.
No one's come on stage and slapped you though, right?
No, that would be a very big L on their fault. I'm 300 pounds and I've boxed regularly for the last 12 years, so I'm welcoming it. I'm actually putting it out there. If you would like to slap me, bring it. I will challenge you.
The security.
I was gonna say it's a pretty common thing now with comics. It seems like because Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, like the last 4 weeks,
yeah,
both of them have been attacked on stage.
I welcome it. Bring it on if you would like to live shortly.
Definitely won't be laughing it off like Chris Rock did.
At all. No, I'm gonna make jokes still later, but you will be at the dentist.
The next question was, has there been one moment, rather it was doing stuff with Comedy Central or doing the 8,000 person crowd, has there been one moment where you kind of sat there and in the moment you were like, wow, I think I've made it? Or is that not happened yet? And what in the future, what is a moment where you envision that kind of that mindset?
Yeah, I think there's like steps, right? The first one would be the day, the night of my second Comedy Central taping. When I went back to do This Is Not Happening in LA, it wasn't so much the taping itself. The reason I felt like I made it was my wife came with me this time, and when we were walking out of the taping, there was a line for the next shows for the evening tapings, and the audiences knew who I was. So like, it was just cool that my wife got to see that it's real, you know, because as much as she knows and I check in and let her know what's happening, in order for me to do comedy, she has to stay home with my kids. So she doesn't get to live it. So it was like really beautiful to me that she got to kind of see and experience like fans and see people like, yo, I love what your husband do.
It's like a take your kid to work day.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it was beautiful. I would say that's up there. The only close second would be I did a story on PBS about when my wife was pregnant, driving through like going over 90 miles per hour and like getting tickets to get her a dessert. And it was completely clean. I did no curses in it. So it was the first time I got to show what I do to my kids.
That's
so
awesome,
it was cool for them, you know?
Do you have a personal favorite joke or story you tell?
I would say my favorite story I tell is on Immigrant Made. It's on my album. It's a story about my grandfather. When he moves to New York, he heard his kids, my uncles, complaining about break-ins into the houses in the neighborhood. So he told them that what they should do is buy a bunch of chickens and put them all over the yard. And they did not understand why that would work. So he just kept buying chickens, and we ended up with like 1,000 chickens in the backyard.
It's a real story?
It's a real story. And somebody broke into the yard after like 9 months, and they tripped on the chickens, and it made a ton of noise. And then all of like my uncles went up, beat up the guy, called the cops, and the guy got arrested. And we had to explain to police officers why there were 1,000 chickens in a random backyard in Brooklyn. And they went to talk to my grandfather. My grandfather said, yeah, I did that on purpose because chickens make noise, you know? So when someone goes into your house, you can't do so when there's chickens there. You can't tiptoe around 1,000 chickens. So yeah, it's a weird security alarm system. So it was effective, is what I'm saying.
Sounds like it,
but
yeah.
I do like a 10-minute version of that, kind of showing the whole thought process he went through on my album.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. Was there any like crowd work moments that kind of stood out to you? Like anything where you like just completely like shit on someone or like you just like choked in some way? That like
yeah, I mean, memorable? I don't necessarily like believe in the whole like shit on people often thing. I've developed this weird philosophy with that, right? Like if you're yelling at my show, it's because you're overly enthusiastic. So I'm on board. I want to know what's going on. Also, I got to repeat what you said. Otherwise, if I just start shitting on you, the audience just thinks, oh, this dude's mean.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
So
it can definitely come off the wrong way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had to like figure out ways around that. But usually like they work out well. The most recent show, we had like 8 women from like I want to say from Maine who were there in New York for like a bachelorette party. They were just overly happy that their friend was getting married. And I explained to her why it wasn't going to work. And we spent like 10 minutes on the likelihood that their relationship was going to fail. And she didn't believe me. I was telling her the math. I was like, yo, 50% of marriages fail. She's like, my marriage is going to make it. I was like, I promise you 50% of them fail. Yours isn't going to make it. And she said, why not? And we went through the list of her friends. I was like, you got 7 people with you. There's 8 friends. And I went down the list, and it turns out that 3 of them were divorced 4 of them were married. I said, you the break-even point. So,
Oh, that's a
it
good
was
one.
amazing. Yeah, and you know, again, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I started asking the questions. It was an awesome moment.
Just
That's
sets it up
sweet.
perfectly when something like that goes down.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. But my last question is just if you could give one piece of advice or, you know, a few to somebody who wants to get into the stand-up world, what would it be for them?
Yeah, write constantly. It's the one thing you can control. And get up as much as you can. That one's harder to control because, like, you know, for example, if you are in Boise, I'm assuming there's not that many open mics available. Get up every time they offer them, but the writing thing, you can do that. There's no one stopping you. Get up daily. But if you can move to a place that allows you to do the stage time, there's a reason every comic moves to New York. It's not because the coolness of it. It's not because you're gonna be seen by TV. It's because there's an unlimited amount of stage time here. You can get up. There's literally like 100 shows every day. Damn. And I'm not saying that as an exaggerated number. I promise you, if you ask me, I can find 100 open mics in New York tonight.
Damn.
That is insane. Like, that is unmatched by any other city. So if you want to practice the craft, do the 2 things that you can do. Write every day and get on stage as often as you can. And when your city caps that, move to a city that allows you to do it more.
All right.
That's nice advice. Yeah. I've always wanted to do some stand-up comedy. I just had a fear of I got to like build up the courage and stuff just to go write. I should write something too first, but yeah.
I think everybody should try it. A. B. I think anyone that wants to try it should make sure they do it. I don't even care if you do it for a living, just because it's such an easy thing to check off of your like bucket list. Like how is like literally sign up for a mic, go talk for 5 minutes. The worst thing that's going to happen, Ross, you eat it.
Yeah.
That's it. But guess what? It's done in 5 minutes. And on top of that, no one else in that audience will ever remember you if you bomb.
That's very true.
I promise you. You have the worst set of your life. In fact, I would challenge you to do that, Ross. Go to a show and talk gibberish. Say words backwards, completely bomb.
Yeah, can't
and
get
I promise you,
that.
Literally, but then go back the next week, none of those people will be there again. It'll be a whole new set of people. They'll never remember. You'll be like a random story in one couple's like life story at most. And that's if that couple makes it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
just a funny story at dinner parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the literal worst thing. And they won't even be able to describe you anymore. You'll be a different person. So do it. It does not hurt. It's the easiest thing to check off the bucket list. And then from there, you'll be able to do it fearlessly because you already experienced the worst.
That's very true. Yeah, maybe I got to do that soon then. I'll definitely take you up on that.
Next time I'm in Boise, that's what you're doing. You're going to do an open mic.
Yeah,
okay, dude, I'm down for that.
Heck yeah.
Let's do it up. We'll go to a mic together, Ross.
I'm definitely down for that. I'll start writing content now.
Amen. Let's do it. I'm going to hold you to that.
Hell yeah. So yeah, I mean, just thanks again for coming on. This was a lot of fun. Before we end things here, what do you got coming up next? Obviously, you're going to be more involved on TikTok and social media. Any tours, shows, anything coming up?
And where can we find you on socials?
Yeah, man, you can find me on all social media at Gastor Almonte. Anytime all my tour dates and stuff like that, I post on my Instagram. My TikTok and YouTube channel will be going nuts June 1st. You got my word on that. If I don't, bomb me online. Okay, go crazy. Hold me to that standard. I promise. But yeah, in terms of other things, I have. I can't say that contractually. I got some coming out on TV later. This should be fun. I'll be announcing that soon.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, everything I got going on, you will see it posted on my socials at Gastor Almonte. And check out my podcast, The War Report with Shalewa Sharp and Gastor Almonte. It's us literally like talking over the news, and we kind of update you on what's going on in our day-to-day life as comedians.
That's what's up. Hopefully we see you on Fallon or SNL here in the next coming years.
Amen. Soon enough.
Yeah, it'll happen.
Absolutely.
I can see it.
Awesome.
Manifest it. Yeah, thanks again for coming on. A lot of fun.
Yo.
We're super excited to see where the future takes you.
Amen. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Oh, take care, y'all. Real pleasure rocking with all of y'all. Rouse, Raws, Danger. Y'all the homies. Hope to see y'all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you
You
as
too.
well.
Y'all have a good one, all right?
You as well.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching. And until next time, you never know. Thank you for listening to this episode of the You Never Know podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to our pod and follow us on our socials at You Never Know Podcast. Until next time, you never know.